Hello, everybody. This fucking sucks. It's Music Meltdown. It's Nickelback. Who's hyped? Let's go. Um, I'm
Yay.
I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I didn't want to do this. I got a bastard of a man ahead of me who is making me indulge in this catalog. This was not fun. It was fun at the start. You get the Nickelback fatigue around halfway through, though, so would not recommend this exercise. Would you, however, recommend the Nickelback catalog?
Well, I guess the point of the video is stay tuned and find out if I do. Um, I can talk about my background with Nickelback if you'd like, which is
The radio.
that the radio. Yeah. I I'm pretty sure Photograph was the first song that I heard of theirs, honestly. That's the one that I know like always caught my ear because it was like playing on radio and I thought, "Oh, this sounds really cool." So I got like a greatest hits CD compilation that they did back in like 2014 or something. Um, and I liked the songs from that compilation at the time. Now, eventually, I did grow some semblance of education and taste, and not all of the opinions have stayed the same, we'll put it that way, but maybe not all of them have changed. But let's say I have a reputation as a relative Nickelback defender. And we're going to get into why that is. And I'm going to emphasize it's relative. I'm not a super fan, but I have heard all of these records before. I think I've heard all of these records multiple times before, with the possible exception of Get Rollin'. I think I only heard that once, but I'm very familiar with their catalog going in. And I could say a lot more, but I think the video will speak for itself. How about you? What was your familiarity with the Nickelback oeuvre
Oh,
going
yeah.
in?
I knew the hits. And I will say this, I didn't dislike the hits. This might be kind of letting a bit too much out of the bag. I don't dislike that many songs in the Nickelback catalog. However, I probably like even less than I dislike. So I feel ungodly neutral about 99% of this discography. So I can be tuned out this whole time for all intents and purposes. But let's get into things with what I would assume for most people is the worst Nickelback record. I'm going with 2022's Get Rollin'. This is just the culmination of their last couple records. They're trying to be poppier while also keeping some of their rock cred, if you could call it that. But just simply at its core, this is a very weak set of songs. Chad Kroeger is not a good songwriter, but at his best, he is able to at least make a competent hook and a slightly catchy melody. Around the time of, I want to say 2009, however, he probably lost that capability for the most part. He really peaked with What the Hell Is on Joey's Head. That really was his apex as a writer. But ultimately, the production is super polished. It has no grit left into it, which I really am constantly tossed and turned with this catalog on if I want them to be grittier and more rocking, because that doesn't work. But also the poppier stuff, Chad can't pull off. So it's a very big toss and turn between the relative comfort that I get within Nickelback records. He either sounds too dirty, so he just sounds gross most of the time, or it's too clean and it's also gross. I've unfortunately had the chorus of San Quentin stuck in my head for the past 2 weeks. Fuck you. Ultimately, there's just not very much redeeming about this record at all. I have it at 1.5 stars. I don't think that they have made a truly abhorrent record, but they have far from made a fucking good one. I can tell you that much.
Okay. Um, First off, because you mentioned the chorus of San Quentin, I feel obliged to sing it at least once. So, somebody please get me the hell out of San Quentin. There you go. That's my Chad Kroger impersonation for the
That's
day.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we're going in different directions on this list already. I was You said obvious bottom record, and I definitely thought you were talking about a different one. So we're in interesting territory. Um, my bottom, which I actually did struggle with because I thought I might put a different record here, but my bottom is 2014's No Fixed Address. Um, I have it at 1.5 stars. I also do not get to 1 star for Nickelback. Now, here's the thing. I I'm not a big star rating person in general, but when I think in terms of star ratings, like I reserve 1 star for like records that are genuinely incompetent, like records that are completely incompetent, that are genuinely like poorly done on an almost objective level and poorly produced, poorly written, or just records that are clearly like no effort was put into it. Like poor production, look at the last like 5 Ringo Starr albums, apart from the country record. That one was nice. Thanks, T-Bone Burnett. Um, and Elton John's Victim of Love, another example. That's a 1 star record because there's almost negative effort going into that record, pretty much. Nickelback has a floor of competence. That is why I don't get to 1 star there. There are moments on No Fixed Address that I think are genuinely okay. And there are moments that I think throughout there is still a genuine level of competence in the production and in the songwriting that any records that I view as a 1 star don't get to. That said, this is shit, and I'll tell you why. Um, watch the Todd in the Shadows video. I guess that's kind of my recommendation. It's a great video. Nickelback, as you said, Chad Kroeger has been really pivoting into like the pop side of his songwriting in recent years, I think. Um, I mean, the last 20 years, really, but it's never more obvious and never more painfully apparent than on No Fixed Address. Um, to the point where now they're experimenting with like electro pop textures. There's almost like an Imagine Dragons level of like vibe to this thing, which does not fit Chad Kroger's voice or Nickelback's ethos in any way. And the thing is, like, the songwriting I think is actually not much poppier than their other stuff. They just are now very early 2010 sounding with the production sounds and the kind of background vocals that just come in randomly, these samples that they use, these dynamic swells into the choruses that like are just prime radio ready, radioactive type of stuff. Um, listen to the track "Make Me Believe Again," not because it's the best, but because it's a good litmus test of what an average song sounds like here. Because this kind of is also all over the place. You had your heavier stuff like Edge of a Revolution and Get 'em Up, which generally I think are the better stuff on here. And then just full on pop territory with stuff like Miss You and the fucking Flow Rida song got me running around. Holy cow. Um, I don't know if I'd call that a mistake, but it has not aged well. She Keeps Me Up. What else needs to be said about that song? Again, it's so bad it's good territory. So I'm kind of partial to it. And that's part of why I almost didn't put this record at the bottom, because I do think this is definitely the worst Nickelback record, but it's not the one I would least frequently listen to, if that makes sense. There's a sort of charm to it that's endearing in a perverse sort of way. I also like Sister Sin more than I should. The kind of weird country stomp thing there kind of works for me. I don't know why. But yeah, not very good. I would say it's a strong 1.5 stars if such things exist. But no, I realistically I could not put this anywhere else than the bottom.
I get it. I actually think that record is better than its reputation. So you won't be hearing about it for actually a decent bit for me. However, I may, in the world of Nickelback, have came out with a Nickelback hot take. I hear this record is often enjoyed by people who don't even really like Nickelback, but I thought this record was terrible. Second from the bottom for me, 2017's Feed the Machine. I hear this is one of the more preferable records of theirs, and I just do not understand that. I think that the songs are awful. Chad sounds really bad here. You still have some of the like poppier production on his vocals, and I just think that they're really bad. They're getting heavier, but it's not in a good way. It's faux like heaviness. It's them trying to gain back the credibility that they may have had earlier on with the rock realm, but it's Imagine Dragons most of the time. And like we're past smoke and mirrors and like the decent Imagine Dragons. We're into fucking like Evolve at this point. And I don't need Chad Kroger to do Believer. I mean, I'm good. I don't need Dan Reynolds to do Believer for that matter. I I just don't get it. I thought that this record sounded really bad. I thought the songs were poor. I don't think that Chad is at his best here. I think it's really awful. I'm at a star and a half for Feed the Machine. I don't get why people in the Nickelback fandom prefer this record. I think it's really lousy.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I thought we were going to be somewhat on the same page with this ranking, but no, I think we've just kind of blown the whole fucking chicken coop wide open here, killed all the chickens. Um, okay. Well, I thought this was going to be my hot take, and maybe it still will be, but I don't think it's anywhere near that one. I said that I was kind of torn between my bottom records, um, and I do think No Fixed Address is their worst. But if I had to pick the record that I do not want to listen to ever, I don't have a single song on this record that I ever really want to revisit for any particular reason. I I have one song on every other Nickelback song, at least on every other Nickelback record, at least that I would happily revisit for one reason or another. But I never want to listen to Curb again. Uh Curb is my number 9, 1996 debut record. Um, as I said, I really look for technical competence in records, just in general. I think most people do, but I really value it, which is why I can be more partial to like your sort of like mainstream pop music, I suppose. Like there's a level of technical proficiency where even if you think it's vapid bullshit, that's fine. It's still well executed. Curb, I understand people are like, oh, it has its charm or whatever because it's the band like figuring stuff out and trying to start from scratch. And I don't mean to be too harsh on this because these guys are in their early 20s at this point. Like, I don't want to punch down on this band, but it's not good. I really don't think it's good at all. This is imitation Pearl Jam, as a lot of people say. I think you can already hear that Chad Kroger's voice has more natural power than someone like Eddie Vedder, but the exaggerated like imitation thing that he's trying to do here makes it sound goofier. Like the track Where on this record, I think it sounds really bad. Um, so no, his voice has moments on here that I don't mind. Like Detangler, I think is the closest thing we get to a classic Chad Kroger performance. I like the kind of double tracked vocals thing that he's doing in the choruses, but again, a lot of it just sounds like he knows who he wants to sound like and he can't quite get there, and he hasn't figured out a unique avenue for his voice to go down. Also, the sound of the record doesn't inspire joy at all. It's very cheap sounding, which makes sense. And again, I think people find some sort of charm in that. And look, I like cheaply produced records. I like records that are truly independent and recorded in like bedrooms and shit like that. But that's not an automatic win for me. This record just sounds cheaply produced. It doesn't sound good, and the underlying songs and performances are not enough to lift it up, especially the drums. Like Brandon Kroger, sure, he's a fine guy. Thank God this was his only album on the drums. And if it wasn't, hopefully they at least gave him a better drum set. The set sounds like shit. I mean, what the fuck is Windows Shopper? I mean, that snare drum is like Saint Anger level. Horrible, horrible stuff. So no, like there's no highlight, there's no ironic highlight on this record that I want to revisit. It reminds me of other bands. It reminds me of Nickelback when they were better. No, I don't have time for this. I'm sorry. I don't mean to punch down on a bunch of guys in their early 20s who are figuring shit out at this point, but things worked out okay for them. So like I think they'll be okay if I put this at number 9. Um, I'm at like between 1.5 to 2 stars, maybe a very light 2 stars for this thing.
That's fair. Yeah, not good. I just checked. That was Brandon Kroger's only record. However, I think that the drums universally sound like dog shit across this catalog. So it didn't really stick out to me as much because their drum sounds are always awful. Um, However, we're trudging along here, and I'm gonna have pretty much the same review for all these records. So next up for me, I have The Long Road. I thought this record was going to be more of the same, and it is. You get uninspired riffs with terrible drum production, annoying singer from Kroger, and this is really when things lyrically start to take a fucking nosedive. I would never say that Chad Kroger was a good songwriter, but I mean, figured you out. It's just gross. It's just more of the same trite aggro rock bullshit, but now it's just getting icky. And like, you already don't look like the most flattering men. I don't think you should be writing songs like this. I just, I'm just fucking bored, truthfully, by this point in the catalog. I'm at 2 stars. I think it's not very good. I think it's a pretty poor record. And I find little to really enjoy in Nickelback's deep cuts, unfortunately.
Fair enough. My number 8 is 2008's Darkhorse. Um, this is the record that like people point to when they talk about like bad Nickelback albums. It's like the cliched one, because it's probably the most famous bad Nickelback record. I guess people could throw around all the right reasons if they really wanted to, but unfortunately for them, that record isn't bad. So we'll get to that. Um, and yeah, it like again, I think there are a couple of records that are worse than this one, but if you were to tell me very passionately, this is the worst Nickelback record, if I had gone for a while without listening to Curb or No Fixed Address, I'd probably believe you, or at least like I wouldn't be able to muster a retort. Um, Now some of it is because I mean, I don't think there's a worse possible way to start this record than something in your mouth. Like you want to talk about starting on a bad note. Um, like Chad Kroger, I'm just I can talk about it now, I guess. I think he's a great singer. Um, at least in his prime. Like that like 10 year stretch, maybe even closer to like 12-year stretch from like Silver Side Up through Here and Now, maybe. I think he's really, really like on fire for the most part. I think he does what he does, that just straightforward, hard rock, no subtlety, aggressive singing, better than almost anybody. And I think for a lot of songs here, he sounds good, but his vocals are also more processed here. Again, they're really leaning into that pop influence a bit more. And that's the case on the opening track. It's just, yeah. And the lyrics, ooh, no, thank you. Um, I feel like this record is meant to like respond to their critics in some way. Like it's an album made to piss people off. Like they took all the worst aspects of all the right reasons, all the worst aspects that were already there, and we're like, oh, people don't like the fact that we sing about sex and blowjobs and all sorts of like, demeaning shit. Okay, well, that's fine that people don't like that, but guess what? A lot of people also do. So why don't we make a record that appeals to our fans who eat this shit up anyways, while pissing off our critics? I mean, it's best of both worlds. Like it's intentionally antagonizing people. At least that's the impression I get. And honestly, like fair enough. Fair enough. Um, does that mean I'm going to excuse the hypersexual lyrics that at the very least straddle the line of misogyny, like Next Go Round and SEX? No, I'm not going to excuse that. They're terrible songs, but I can somewhat appreciate the sort of fuck you attitude that this record has. And I do think there are peaks here. Burn It to the Ground, possibly Chad Kroger's best vocal. I think he sounds phenomenal on that thing as far as like rock vocals go. And I kind of like Never Gonna Be Alone as well. It's kind of like a Far Away part two, I suppose. So that one's decent. I'm kind of partial to Gotta Be Somebody and um If Today Was Your Last Day, I guess. But like, yeah, I don't know. For the most part, it's pretty bad. It doesn't sound terrible. I didn't even mention that Mutt Lang is the main producer here, but yeah, he is. So I don't really hear any sort of improvement or really a major degradation in audio quality, I suppose. It just kind of exists. It's the Nickelback formula. This is maybe their most formulaic record in a lot of ways, for better and often for worse. It's 2 stars. Not god awful, in my opinion, but not worth the energy of me defending it, which I will be doing for some other records later on.
Well, I'm really glad I didn't do any research into these records now because this fucking pains me to say. I hate that I have to concede this, but Mutt Lang should be like the perfect fucking producer for Nickelback. Like, just think about it. He took a band like Def Leppard, who have no personality to them, are the most boring ass rock and rollers out there, and was able to give them multi-million selling records with a couple decent songs on them. Like he should be able to do that with Nickelback, who I would say Chad Kroger is probably a better writer than Joe Elliott. Um, and like think about the cool shit that he could have brought into him. I'm actually legitimately now disappointed enough to where I'm going to change my ranking around to where Dark Horse is now my next record. Mike, what the hell are you doing? Get your hands in there. It's Nickelback. It's gonna sell. Do something. But no, it's just more of the same. Bad lyrics, annoying vocals, bland parts, and there's just so little substance to their music. I I get why they became as popular as they did. I understand Chad fucking figured out the formula. You know, that's like the big thing that people comment about. He did his research on pop music. And maybe that's why your stuff feels so fucking sanitized whenever you're trying to go for the hits, because you don't have any identity to yourself. It's not so aggressively terrible that I don't want to hear it again. I just find their music to be aggressively mind numbing. There is some music that you like shut your brain off. For example, Def Leppard. You can shut your brain off and just enjoy rock and roll. But you can't do that with Nickelback because you have songs like Sex and stuff like that where it just feels misogynistic and it just feels icky to listen to it half the time. And what I will say about your comments about Crad as a singer, um, I don't think that he's terrible. I think that he is, once again, though, consistently produced very poorly. I don't think that how they produce his vocals often helps enhance them. I think he needs to be very dry. He needs to be very raw because then you get the straight up power, you get the emotion that you can get in his voice. I don't like, for example, how he sounds in All the Right Reasons, where it sounds really sanitized to me. I think that takes away the personality that you do get from Chad Kroger, for better or worse. I am at 2.5 stars. I think this is mediocre.
Fair enough. Um, our ratings are kind of actually lining up pretty reasonably so far. Um, I'm up to 2.5 stars with my number seven, which is 2022's Get Rollin', most recent one. Uh, I think San Quentin is pretty badass, honestly. I feel like he continues the kind of heavier sound that they do on Feed the Machine pretty effectively. Um, and I mean, it's downhill from there. The again, I think Feed the Machine, not to preface when I talk about that record too much, but like there's definitely a pop influence there, but I don't think it's nearly as pronounced as it was on the couple of records before that. But it's a lot more prevalent again with Get Rollin'. And you can tell at this point that Kroger's voice is starting to lose its sense of edge. Like I think he was able to work around it with stuff like No Fixed Address and Feed the Machine, even if like you watch him live and you can tell like, yeah, he's not operating at the level he was in the mid aughts. But like now, I mean, he's close to 50. So the voice it doesn't have the edge that it used to. It doesn't have that higher range that it used to. I do kind of like the like little punch ins he does to accentuate the vocal on Skinny Little Missy. Dreadful lyrics. Like I mean, it's a not a good song, but I think his voice sounds kind of cool in the chorus. Apart from that, though, this is the Nickelback record I think I have the least to say about in general. There's I think all of these records live in this kind of dire quagmire of mediocrity, and um, I think like Vegas Bomb, kind of a glitzier sequel to This Afternoon. I don't like that one very much at all. I think Tidal Wave is decent. I guess that's probably my other favorite song from the record, but no, it just not a record that excites me in any particular way. I think it's fundamentally stronger than the other ones I have lower, and it doesn't have the literally dreadful moments of those records, in my opinion. But I mean, it's like it's a fairly weak to middling 2.5 stars. I will not revisit this very frequently. Not that I make a point of revisiting these albums frequently to begin with, but relatively speaking, Get Rollin' is not one I have the desire to listen to very much. So that's why it's my number seven.
Sounds about right. I will say, for as much as I don't like it, San Quentin is still like easily the best song on the album, which is maybe indicative of why it's my last place and 1.5 stars. But you, there's your compliment. There we go. You got like one every 5 minutes or whatever. Next up, we have Curb. This would have been my my number eight, but I got disappointed, so had to switch it around. And this is fine. It sounds like shit, but all these post grunge bands sounds like shit. So it's no different from Creed. It's no different from fucking Bush. It's just all the same level of just like nothing burger that I just don't like. I got nothing to say about it really. They're heavy guitars, but like the riffs aren't cool. The bass lines don't go anywhere because it's post grunge. The fuck does a bass player do in post grunge? And the vocals, I mean, say what you will about Chad, but they aren't recorded well because nothing's recorded well. The songs don't stick out. They're trying to just do more of the same from the time period. There's no solos that matter. There's no like drum fills that are there. And even from the start, their drums sound awful. So I don't know. They're fine. They exist. I don't like this album, but I can't say that I like was upset about it while I listened to it. 2.5 stars, but I will say I would expect if I went back to these records, like they'd all go down, just given my mindset on Nickelback right now. So 2.5 stars. It's fine.
You're just gonna lower all your scores because you're that pissed off about Mutt Lang not rescuing the band from whatever in 2008.
I'm fucking fuming. Did you see what he did for Maroon 5 in 2010? Hands All Over is a decent album.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not caught up on my Maroon 5 lore, so I've kind of
That
left that one behind.
that'll be how I get back at you. We do Maroon 5 next.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. My number six. Maybe this is also controversial. I don't know. I don't really know. I also don't really know what year this record came out. I mean, I do, but like there's like three different answers for it depending on who you ask. But I have the state at number six. Uh, it's kind of in that 2.5 to 3 star borderline. Um, fuck it, 3 stars. Very low 3 stars because I'm feeling generous. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's the follow up to Curb, and it's definitely a lot better. Um, songs are better here. The recording quality is a lot better because this actually sounds professionally recorded on some level. The drums sound competent this time around. I forgot to say this earlier. I do disagree. I think the drums actually oftentimes are highlights of Nickelback records, especially after Daniel Adair joined. I think Daniel Adair is genuinely like a great drummer, and I think he uplifts some of those records for sure. Um, and yeah, the playing is solid. Like they're also like all competent players. Like that's the other thing too. Like part of the reason that Nickelback has that floor of quality for me is that they're all like good. I don't know if I would call any of them great apart from Adair. Like I think Chad Kroger is a fine enough lead guitarist, but he's not going to be winning awards necessarily. I don't think he has like a bunch of fire ass guitar solos or anything. But they're all good. They all make a good sound and it translates well on records and even in live shows from what I've seen. But anyways, the state, I don't know. There's just there again, I feel like Kroger as a vocalist is not quite where he is going to get to. Um, I do think that while this sounds better, the Sonics are still a little bit amateurish. I think there's really a noticeable upgrade when they release Silver Side Up. I think that record sounds a lot better than this one. I think Breathe is pretty good. The highlight here, which is genuinely like top tier Nickelback as far as I'm concerned, take that for what you will, is Leader of Men. Um, Absolutely a highlight, like easily clears every other song they'd recorded um, up to that point. I just love like the build up. Um, like up to like the verses where like the drums are really kicking in, and Kroger's singing stuff like that overlooks the water. Um, sorry, like imitating Chad Kroger is fucking hilarious. So I love being given the chance and the platform to do it. So thank you. But yeah, I think that's the clear highlight. Breathe is good. Uh, Not leaving yet is fine, I guess. Is decent. Not a bunch of clear highlights here. Like I think the records I have above this have clearer standout tracks than this one does, which has Leader of Men and then a bunch of songs that are like they're fine. So low 3 stars for the state. My number 6. A lot of people think this is one of the very best. I'm not quite up to that point, but um, but yes, I'm sure we will get to it more when you have it at your number 1. I'm gonna guess, judging by that reaction.
Yeah. And I gotta sugarcoat it, yeah. But uh continuing on with my Nickelback hot takes. Let's strap in, buddies, because I'm on a plane ride to deliver my CD of Silver Side Up. Um, Feels weird to say I was disappointed in a Nickelback album, but I was expecting at least a couple decent, like catchy tunes here. But for the most part, it's more of just a shut off your brain rock and roll with some okay tunes. Chad says that he studied popular music and what made like other songs and artists successful. Yes. But outside of How You Remind Me, you don't hear it. It's just a weaker set of tracks compared to the state with, in my opinion, while it might be cleaner and more professionally done production, I don't like the production as much. It's just not exciting or captivating in any real way. I am at another 2.5 stars, and here's what I'll say. I think How You Remind Me is kind of without even any contest their best hit. Like for what it is, for it being just like whatever sort of pop rock song, it is pretty good. I think that the lyrics are fine. We aren't quite at misogyny yet, but we're getting there. But it's not good. I don't like it. There's a reason it released on 9/11. It brought a plague upon this earth. 2.5 stars for Silver Side Up. Uh, yeah, there's my Chad. There you go.
Yeah, we'll get to my never made it as a wise man impression later, or maybe we just did.
We did it.
But
Good job, team.
here's what I'll say about Chad Kroger as a pop songwriter. I think he's I I think he picks it up actually pretty well. Like, and we'll get to my talking about Silver Side Up eventually, but I do think you can hear the very kind of hook centric focus in his songwriting pretty clearly, even again in that kind of early aughts period. And I think it serves the band. Like that's the thing. I do think Kroger has a really good ear for hooks and for melodies, and that's what lifts Nickelback above the mediocrity of its competition. Maybe you could argue into just another tier of mediocrity, but like there's a definite proficiency here, I think, that I think is fairly evident, honestly. And we'll get to that more when we talk about some of the top records here. But for now, we'll talk about another super light 3 star record, that being 2011's Here and Now. In some ways, this should be lower, um, because this is kind of like Darkhorse Part 2 in some ways. But I do think the core songs here are better, and it's not as blatantly misogynistic, which is good. They're not leaning into that side of things. The record opens with maybe my favorite Nickelback song, "This Means War." I think that's has a pretty killer riff to it, honestly. I think Chad sounds great on it, and yeah, I think it's part of it. Part of the thing here too, I think, is Darkhorse. Part of what I talked about as a problem with that record is that the production, the muttling, the engineering on the vocals or whatever, and things like that, it's starting to sound a little bit more processed and pop centric in ways that I think don't serve the band. Like "Gotta Be Somebody," I think is an example of that. Even though I like the song enough, it's definitely like made for rock radio, a song that is written in a way to where your grandparents won't be that offended if it comes on the radio. And you get that on Here and Now, but I do think you have enough heavy moments to make up for that. Like I think about the track Midnight Queen. Horrible lyrics as usual. Um, Also, I think they're self-aware with a lot of their lyrics. That's not me trying to excuse misogyny, but I mean, I don't think that the non-misogynistic lyrics that are bad are coming from a place of incompetence. I think it's they know simplistic ideas sell. So I'll just throw that out there. I do think they are self-aware for the most part. But Midnight Queen, horrible lyrics, and it's a heavy song, and I think that heaviness actually saves it to the point where I still kind of enjoy it. Um, When We Stand Together is maybe the best of their like peace and love tracks, I suppose. I think that one's pretty decent. Lullaby, um, Nickelback writing an anti-suicide song. Like I don't know. You know, I think it's good. Like, granted, like as someone who has struggled with their mental health before and has struggled with depression, like if I was in that type of a spot, this song was not going to be the first one that jumps to mind and is probably not going to be the one to bring me out of that quagmire, but I applaud them for trying. And you know what? If that song has saved at least one person's life, then it is a net positive to this world. So there you go. Um, yeah, it's a light 3 stars. Here and Now, I still think there's a lot of like production issues with it. Again, I think the fundamental songs on here are messy, but I do think some of the heaviness and some of the highlights bumps it up a little bit in my ranking. So Here and Now, my number 5.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm here to shock the world. So my number four Nickelback record is No Fixed Address, which, to clarify, I don't fucking like it. However, I think it is somehow one of the more palatable and also by far the most compelling in the catalog. It's 2014. Times were tough for Nickelback. I mean, people hated them. I mean, people hated them always. I mean, but still, people really hated Nickelback. So, you know what they do? They turn into Imagine Dragons, which gonna be honest, don't think that was the career play. There was already Imagine Dragons hate then, but everyone hates Nickelback. Who fucking cares? Um, it's the furthest pop that they ever went with their sound, and I think that it is fine. I don't like it. I don't like the sound or anything, but I think that at this point in their career, even if I don't enjoy it, this is probably where they should have went. The main issue is who the fuck said they could do funk? It's pathetic. It's absolutely asinine. Uh, I just don't even fathom the decision making upon that front. I don't really think that I have anything worse. It's there's nothing on here that's as bad as some of like their sex jams, for lack of a better term. You don't have a figured you out or a sex on this record. And I think it starts out well enough with probably one of their best tracks, Million Miles an Hour, which I'd go as far as to say is pretty good. Edge of a Revolution, I think, is fucking insane, but I think it's also like a decent song. The Flow Rida feature is perhaps one of the funniest moments in all of music, I feel like. I just don't even I'm just trying to think about this because you have to imagine it wasn't just Flo Rida they went to. They had to have gone to other rappers. Like there's no way Flo Rida was their first pick. In my head, I'm thinking, it's 2014. They may have gone for like a Wiz Khalifa. They may have tried to get like I don't know if they got like Killer Mike, get like some RTJ cred in here with, your fucking Nickelback album. But we get Flo Rida, so icons. I don't fucking know. I have nothing to say about it. I think that it is a mind-bogglingly mediocre record at its core. I have it at a crisp 2.5 stars. But just from how intriguing I think it is, I don't see how it can be their worst record. Um, yeah, no fixed address, 2.5 stars. My number four.
Fair enough. Um, my counter argument to that is that Flo Rida was their first choice, um, from what I can tell. And I just actually even pulled up the Genius biography as I was, or the Genius annotation as I was looking at this. And yeah, they weren't even planning on having him in. They just had a mutual friend, and it was like, "Hey, I'm working on a Flow Rider record. Do you want him to rap?" And they're like, yeah, why not? Who cares? What the fuck?" So yeah, first
Or,
choice apparently. But
I'd be disappointed, but I don't think any of these people have listened to rap music before. No
well,
more than the
that's
Vanilla Ice.
exactly like why would they go after someone like Killer Mike? Like,
You
like
gotta get
who
cred.
knows?
It's 2014. Times are tough for Nickelback. They got to build up their credibility.
They got to get cred, but like I don't have, even if I'm sure that Chad Kroger has a decent bit of like music awareness, like I don't know. I don't know that they know how to get cred, right? Flo Rida might have been like the only person they heard of. Or like, I don't know, maybe they were like, "Oh, what is yeah, it's 2014. What's Tupac doing these days?" That type of thing, right?
No,
So,
honestly, thinking it through now, probably should have been Nelly. Would have been a good spot for Nelly.
I mean, good spot is stretching it, but potentially.
Well, no, it's gonna be awful regardless. But like in the context,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, we can dissect the minutia of Nickelback feature decisions at a later point potentially, but
absolutely.
for the time being, my number 4 is going to be 2003's The Long Road. Um, yeah, Silver Side Up 2.0, pretty much. I People talk about this record as being like a drastic change in sound. They've down-tuned the guitars, the bastards. And yeah, it's a little bit darker, I suppose. Like I can hear it to an extent, but it's not reinventing the wheel here, really. I think what's maybe missing, what's maybe different about this record compared to Silver Side Up is that I don't think the hooks are here that were on that other record, which might be intentional. They might have actually been trying to lean into the heavier stuff a little bit, but again, I don't know if that was a how much of that was a conscious decision and how much of that was just, hey, it's a weaker crop of songs, because that happens sometimes. Uh, Flat on the Floor, really punching opener, really cool. I actually think like Nickelback for the most part know how to open their records like pretty damn effectively, and with really like you know aggressive songs oftentimes. So that's one of the better songs on here for sure. Feeling way too damn good. Probably the best hook on the record. Like that's the one that is like, okay, yeah, we're getting into like Silver Side Up, all the right reasons quality here. That one I think is quite good. Uh, because of You has some really cool like breakdowns and great drumming on that one, I think. So that one's really solid. Um, it's kind of a shame that Figured You Out exists, as you said earlier. Very much proto Darkhorse shit, like entirely. And again, they do that stuff on all the right reasons too. But this is maybe the first super egregious example that I can think of where it's just, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing this. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's The Long Road. I think is a solid enough 3-star record for me. It's somewhat unique in the Nickelback canon, and it's kind of surprisingly not talked about as much. I feel like Silver Side Up, you hear a lot about. All the Right Reasons, you hear a lot about. Darkhorse, No Fixed Address, Feed the Machine, because everyone thinks that's the comeback record. The Long Road kind of, I think, gets tossed aside a little bit. It's just kind of in the middle of everything, much like Here and Now is, I suppose, and it's just kind of overlooked. And is that unfair? I don't know. I'm not like that much of an advocate to say that it's unfair, but I think it's actually pretty much along the same levels of quality, maybe only slightly lower than those other ones. Um, it's decent. It's a solid 3-star record. The Long Road, my number 4.
Okay. I mean, we've seen my placement. I'm not a fan, but I can't really argue against it because it's not like you're giving it fucking rapturous praise or anything. But the real debate is, will I have the popular one in my top two? And no, my number three is All the Right Reasons. And I will just point out this record could be higher, could be lower. I don't fucking know. I don't know how I'm supposed to review this because, quite frankly, I absolutely hated my time with it. I think it's really bad. I think that the drums sound terrible. I think that the creepy lyrics are so much worse here compared to the Long Road. They get worse on Darkhorse, but they certainly aren't good. I cannot stand the way that Chad's vocals sound on here. I think that they sound super just like not compressed, but they're super modulated. They just sound so inauthentic to me. However, the guitars are a bit tighter, they're a bit punchier, and there are a few decent, if not ironically funny songs. Fight for all the right reasons, and Someone That You're With are my favorites. Animals is awful. I think Photograph is really funny, and I have nothing else to say because, shocker, I don't care. I have it at 2.5 stars. I can see why I should have had it at two. I can see why I should have had it at three. I think this is, from like a quality perspective, their most competently performed record yet. However, at their most competent, I still think they fucking suck. So 2.5 stars for all the right reasons. It is one of the records of 2005.
Definitely is. Um, I mean, that's fine. I'm not gonna get upset about where you placed it. Like, if you had, I think if you had put it at number 10, I would have been like catatonic. Um, but knowing one of the records that you have above it, I'm very curious what your defense of that record being where it is will be, considering you just said this is the best performed record that they've done to that point. So we can get there, but I'm very curious. Anyways, uh, let's talk about Silver Side Up. It's my number three. Um, and fuck it. Like razor thin 3.5 stars. I do not go above 3.5 stars. So let's get that out of the way. We're not going above that. But I do think Nickelback have three records that I would say are quite good, quite solid, and that I would happily listen to again someday. Um, I Part of it too might just be that I think this is such a major record upgrade over the first couple of records. I think this is definitely tighter in a lot of ways. Such a sharper focus on hooks here. Again, as we've talked about, Chad Kroeger studying pop music. I'd like to think that he, I don't know, hunkered down in some like remote cabin, Bon Iver style or something, and just studied like, you know, pop radio for 3 months without sleeping or something like that. And he comes back with these notebooks of chord diagrams and stuff. And he's like, I've unlocked the secret. I found the code. Um, and yeah, I do think the hooks are actually evident here. I think clearly a poppier record than the first two by a long shot, and I do think it serves to the band's advantage and to these songs' advantage. Again, I also think the record just sounds a lot better from a mixing standpoint. There's just a lot more clarity here, which I think helps. Mike Kroger's bass lines, again, I don't know if Mike Kroger's a fantastic bass player, but I think he's okay. And I think his bass lines really pop out on some of these songs. Chad himself, this is the first record where he really is fully in Chad Kroger in all capital letters form. Right away with the track Never Again, which I think he sounds great on that one. Not one of my absolute favorites on this album, but I think he sounds great. Um, How You Remind Me, everyone knows it. And yeah, I think it's a great pop song, great pop rock song, I suppose. It just really strong hook. Kroger's vocals are solid. Again, easy to make fun of the, never made it as a wise man memes and stuff like that. But, you know, I think it's very competently done. I think it stands up well, certainly compared to what else was coming up on pop and rock radio in the early aughts. Um, that's another thing too. Like, compare Nickelback with the competition, and I mean the legitimate competition they were trying to do. Like, don't compare Nickelback to fucking like what Wilco was doing around this time or like Radiohead. Like, what's the point? They're operating in two different spheres. They have two very different intended outcomes with what they are trying to do. And I am only interested in evaluating what Nickelback is trying to do and do they succeed in how they are doing that. That doesn't mean I don't factor in personal enjoyment, but I think it's important to acknowledge what an artist is going for and what a band is going for when they are making these records. And I think Nickelback actually succeed very well at doing that on some of these albums. Now that said, Too Bad is probably my favorite song on here. I think really like the chorus on here. The intro is really cool. The little like bass slides in there are really awesome. Um, really solid stuff. Where Do I Hide has a really cool damn riff. Like if we're talking about a true Nickelback deep cut that I would throw out as like a hey, check this out, probably would throw out that song. I think that's really cool. Also, we talked about Nickelback being a misogynistic band, which is true. And though that opening track, Never Again, anti-domestic violence song. So checkmate libs. Um, I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking.
I'm trembling.
But I'm trembling. But yeah, I don't know. Again, a bunch of tracks that I'm pretty neutral on for the most part, but it sounds a lot better than the previous records, and it sets up the Nickelback formula, which I guess says something. Very light 3.5 stars. I would revisit it by choice. I think it is fairly decent. Silver Side Up, my number three.
All right. So my number two is Here and Now. And you ask why I have this above all the right reasons, why I have this above their better records. And it's blander. It's just way more generic. It's way less of what Nickelback are. I just find it to be a completely sort of undescript, unnoteworthy, whatever album. And truthfully, I can take that. I'm fine with it. I don't think it's good. I think this being my number two for any artist is kind of pathetic, truthfully. But I didn't notice any truly heinous lyrics on it. I was able to shut my brain off. I was able to be perfectly content with my listening experience. I mean, I just can't believe they aren't trying to make Yankee Hotel Foxtrot here. I mean, what the fuck are you even doing if you aren't trying to be some shoo shoo bullshit? I mean, why bother? 2.5 stars for Here and Now. I think this discography was very exhausting, and I want to hear their Michael Gira collab. So, my number two Here and Now.
Okay, a Nickelback Swans collaboration would kind of slap, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I
I
think it
would
would
be
be
so curious.
I would love, I feel like Chad would be like this devil figure in the background of like the chaos. He just had his rough graveliness.
Mm-hmm.
We got to work on some mashups here.
Yeah, hey, AI exists. We can make something happen. Um, Also, I'm now envisioning like a Nickelback records. It kind of like how like Train covered Led Zeppelin 2 like 10 years ago. I'm imagining like Nickelback covering Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, but like but they do one of their stupid little puns with it where like it's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot and like the beginning part is spelled like FUX with like little periods at the end of it, kind of like they do with SCX.
I
So,
I'd kill for Nickelback does physical graffiti. I'd kill for it. That would be immaculate.
I mean, maybe 10 years ago. I don't think I would care about it now, but
Oh, I just need it for the spectacle. I don't care when it's made.
yeah, that's fair. Um, okay, so we're at my top two, and I knew this was going to be my top two going in because they've been my top two pretty much since Feed the Machine came out. So the question was the order, and I thought going in that it was going to be one way, but it did change. My Nickelback ranking actually has changed since on this re-listen. So my number two is going to be 2005's All the Right Reasons. Um, 3.5 stars, as I said. Um, this is a good album. Sorry, like I hate to break it to the haters out there. This is a good album. As I said, Daniel Adair, former Three Doors Down drummer. Three Doors Down, also solid damn songs. When I'm Gone, fantastic, great song. Do they have a great album? But good songs. Noticeable upgrade over what they had before on the drums, and I think the drums sound really cool on here. like yeah, and I think actually the entire record sounds pretty damn cool. I understand that like Nickelback's ethos ultimately is built off of like grunge music meets Metallica, and not like the super interesting Metallica, but like Fuel, like era Metallica, that sort of thing. But it kind of works. And again, I like it when they lean heavier, and they definitely do that at points on here. Like Follow You Home. I think the opening of that song with the drum pattern is really cool. The riffs are really cool. Kroger sounds great. Damn shame about the lyrics being some of the most uncomfortable in their entire catalog. Really disturbing song. But yes, there's that piece of it. Also, like, what the fuck is Billy Gibbons doing on this record? Like, who invited him, first off? And second off, why is he not on like he's on multiple songs. He's on 3 songs on this record. Like, what I guess he lends them some sort of street cred. I'm not enough of a ZZ Top fan to figure out what that street cred exactly is, but I don't mean to disrespect the Top or the ZZ as it were. So, um, good for him. Fight for All the Wrong Reasons, one of their best, like really heavy sounding songs. I agree with you. I think that's a highlight on this record. Um, I love Photograph. I really do. I'm sorry. I've been attached to it since I was younger. I think it's a great hook. I think the lyrics are stupid and they're funny, but again, I think it is in a way, you know, I think there, as I said, there's a self-awareness to Kroger that comes through in interviews that he does that I appreciate. I think he is very aware of how much he lets himself get away with on these albums and what he does lyrically. And I think he knows just how little lyrics ultimately matter in pop songs, which is really what this is. And be, because of that, because he understands it and he's not just doing it out of pure ignorance, and because I think the hook and the balance between verses and choruses is really excellent for a pop song, I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I think it's one of the best Nickelback songs, unironically. Um, Animals is uncomfortable as hell, as you pointed out correctly. Saving Me is another highlight. I think that one is really cool. It does one of the most interesting song structure things I can think of from like a pop song structure standpoint in quite a while, where like you have like the verses and whatever that have these very like loud drums and stuff like that, and you expect that when like everything like comes out and it goes quiet, you expect that the chorus are just going to launch in, right? Because that's what they do. That's what pop songs do. But they don't just launch in. Like they start with like the acoustic guitar. It's just acoustic guitar strumming, and they're singing the hook like, "Show me what it's like to be the last one standing." Like that's an interesting juxtaposition. Like that's a very conscious choice, and I think that's actually really cool. I like it when pop songs do that and play with like tradition a little bit. Again, I'm not saying it's a brilliant piece of songwriting, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a really cool moment. I think it's clever. I think Far Away is decent. Um, and yeah, I lose steam a little bit on the B side, but Rockstar is the one that I ironically enjoy. So goofy and so silly and so over the top. But again, it's parodic, I think. It's meant to be satirical. It's not meant to be idealistic. It's meant to make fun of that idea. And I firmly believe that. So don't take any of this as me saying that All the Right Reasons is this profound statement or one of the best pop records of all time. I don't believe that, but I will absolutely fight anybody who tells me that this isn't well executed on some level because it absolutely is. And if it's not technically brilliant songs by any means, I'm not going to argue that. I do think, again, for what it is trying to go for, which is be a big radio rock record in the year 2005, um, I would probably wager there probably aren't any better records from that year that are trying to go for that exact sound. I haven't done a deep dive. I cannot confirm this speculation, but I do believe that. I believe they succeed with flying colors of what they are trying to do. And with that said, 3.5 stars for all the right reasons.
What about the Audio Slave record?
You know, I don't know that I've actually heard that Audio Slave record, so I will withhold comment, I suppose.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, it's officially been noted that All the Right Reasons by Nickelback is indeed the best pop work of the 2000s. That is what that means. But my number one, it's almost like I said it 20 minutes ago. It is The State. And I am going to give a almost positive review. I was pleasantly surprised by this record. I like it considerably more than any other Nickelback record. Are they reinventing the wheel? No. Are they doing pretty much anything unique or interesting at all? No. But you know what this album has that no other Nickelback album to me consistently does have? Decent songs. So there we go. I mean, we got a couple. Did I remark any of them? No. But there were a couple decent tracks on this record. I think the production's mostly out of the way, except for the awful snare sound, which, as noted before, I hate all their drum sounds, so like, who cares? There aren't any offensively bad moments. There aren't any bland moments that I feel like they struggle with later on. Just at its core, I think it is a very decent rock and roll record. They could open for like, I don't fucking know, Shinedown. I don't know. They could open for whatever moderately successful rock band is coming to your town. And they could rile the crowd, I guess. Maybe. You can get yourself a beer. There you go. You're going to a rock concert. You want a beer? I give it a strong 3 stars. I think that this is a very admirable attempt at making something good. I hated this, but the state left me in a state of, I guess, consciousness. I was content. I was content with my being after I listened to The State by Nickelback. So, my number one. All right, tell me how I'm fucking wrong about that bullshit album.
I'm glad that the state left you in a state of being conscious after listening to it.
It was a very surprising moment for me.
Yeah. That was the record that I was curious about the justification for why you had it over all the right reasons. Because you were like, all the right reasons is like the most technically proficient. And I'm like, well, okay, well, what the fuck is the justification for having the state over it if it came before all the right reasons? But okay, you're saying that you like some of the songs okay. And that's the difference. It's the songwriting, it's not the playing. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Um, so yeah, my number one, as I said, ever since this record came out, this was top two, like for me, pretty solidly. But the reason why Feed the Machine was not necessarily the record I had at the top for a while was really just because I wasn't that keen on the poppy stuff here. Because there's definitely poppier elements here that are continued from the previous few records. Um, Frankly, though, on this re-listen after hearing it, and maybe it's, it was the trauma from experiencing No Fixed Address immediately before it, but I don't think the pop stuff on here is that bad, really. Granted, like it's always, even though they've done it for years now, it's still going to be a bit odd hearing Nickelback sing songs written by American Idol contestants. But, um, I think the songs themselves are decent enough. Also, I don't think it's actual American Idol either. It's like the Australian version of it. So like, you know, rip off down under American Idol, I suppose. But yeah, uh this is definitely their heaviest record, like for sure. And as I said before, I like it when Nickelback leans into that type of a sound. Overall, I think that's where they are at their peaks as musicians. And I think that's where their weaknesses as songwriters are the most obscured, I think. So the lyrics are not necessarily to the forefront, although this record does contain perhaps the worst single line in a Nickelback album off the song Coin for the Ferryman with the line, but with the icky of the sticky, it don't matter where the wind blows. Um, which I have spent the last almost 8 years of my life trying to figure out what the fuck that was even trying to go for. But in any case, I like it when they go heavy, and they do that a lot here. Opening track, Feed the Machine. Again, it's their pseudo political like bullshit, which they know they're trying to write something that's meant to be vaguely revolutionary, like Edge of a Revolution was, or This Means War was before it, but not actually taking a stance. Like, oh, we can't feed the machine. Oh, who's the machine? I don't know. Is it Trump? Is it, I guess, Hillary at that time? I don't know. I don't think they know. I don't think they care really, but it sounds vaguely angry, and people are angry in 2017. So sure, let's go for it. But really badass song, I think. The riffs are awesome. Drumming is awesome on that track. Again, I think Chad's vocals actually are produced very well on this album overall. And yeah, really cool stuff. Going for the Ferryman, despite my grievance with that one line in particular, is a great rocker, I think, for what it is, in the sense of being very heavy. I think, again, you know, we're not talking about superb songwriting. I actually like Song on Fire a decent bit, which I didn't like before, but I actually think that hook works really nice. Um, what else? After the Rain is solid. Again, the other like heavier stuff like For the River and especially the Betrayal Act 3, I think are really cool. Home is decent. I don't know about Silent Majority necessarily. And they end with an instrumental track, which I think is the only instrumental on a Nickelback record, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, there's that piece of it too. I don't know. Like it doesn't have the same high points from a songwriting standpoint, I think, as All the Right Reasons does from a pop songwriting standpoint, anyways. But I do appreciate the heaviness here. I think this is the Nickelback record that I could most consistently put on and not feel bad about on some way. Like I could probably put this record on for someone who was staying over who liked rock music generally, and they might be like, "Oh, haha, it's a Nickelback record," but they would probably actually like not complain about it or meme about it in the way that they would if I put on Silver Side Up or All the Right Reasons, because there's not as many songs that are like transparently easy to make fun of here. And sometimes, frankly, that's all you need to put a record at number one. So I don't know. I think it's their most consistent album in many ways. I think it has the best heavy moments, possibly the best just pure playing on any Nickelback record, which says a lot for me. And yeah, I liked it when it came out. I still like it now. It's 3.5 stars and fair and honestly like a fairly strong 3.5 stars. Probably not a 4 star record ever. I can't imagine it growing on me that much, but I think this is quite competent. I think this is quite decent, and I would definitely listen to it again. Feed the Machine, my number one.
So, two things. One, I think it's fairly evident that Feed the Machine was a desperate plea for Zach De La Roca to reform Rage Against the Machine. I mean, obviously. What else would he be doing? And
I mean, I I guess sure.
that's the machine.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess they want to. I don't, but like, are they telling Zach you need to feed the machine as you and you need to feed the desires of your fans? Which I don't know. Do they call them machine heads like they're fucking Deep Purple or whatever? I don't know,
Oh,
but
fucking no.
um, or are they saying do we need to feed Zach to the machine as a proverbial sacrificial lamb? Uh, because we Nickelback actually support the machine and we want to feed the machine so as to
Okay.
keep it thriving and running because that machine is a metaphor for the music industry, which is what boosts our career and which is what allows Chad Kroger to live in multi-million dollar mansions with Avril Lavigne or whatever.
Very well could be. And secondarily, I feel I need to ask now, which one would you take? Feed the Machine or Ringo?
Okay. So, and this will preface the question I was going to ask you, which was what we talked about before hitting the record button. Which discography did you prefer? But I'll answer your question first. As far as the peaks of the catalog, Ringo versus Feed the Machine, Ringo for sure. Not by like a astronomical margin, um, but I don't remember what I gave Ringo. Was it a strong
Three
three
and a
and a
half.
half or was it a light four? Okay,
Strong three and a half.
okay, yeah. I think again, if we're hyper focusing on rating numbers or whatever, then Ringo is closer to a 4-star record than Feed the Machine is.
That's fair.
And it's just, yeah, it's very accessible and still less like there's genuinely great songs on Ringo. And Feed the Machine, I don't know that I would say has a ton of like truly great songs on it. But now the question is, as far as like a whole discography listen now, when we think about Ringo Starr versus Nickelback, which I think fairly safe to say the two worst discographies that we have covered together on this channel.
Together, yes.
Uh, yes. So between those two, then, as a whole, which one would you take? Taking into account, I know Nickelback has half the albums that Ringo Starr does. I
Yeah.
understand that. So let's toss that out the window.
Okay.
Who would you take from a strength of catalog average standpoint?
I had five threes, I think, for Ringo. However, I had far more in the pits in comparison to Nickelback. And I mean, truthfully, as much as I don't enjoy Nickelback and I didn't like this, these albums are not difficult listens. Even the worst of them, they are not hard to get through. Ringo just pisses me off, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll
Yeah,
take Nickelback over Ringo. That's fine.
yeah, I think I would agree. I said at the outset when I was establishing why I don't think Nickelback have a 1-star record that I think for me, when I think of 1 stars, when I think of bottom barrel albums, it's like a record that lacks ambition of any sort and a record that is just genuinely incompetent. Like, not just I dislike how this sounds. It's no, there is literal just like this sounds like someone who does not know what they are doing genuinely. And the vocal production on some of those Ringo Starr records absolutely falls under that. Like whoever was mixing the vocals, and I don't think Ringo himself mixed it, but from what I understand, the auto tune is his idea. Like, that's just fundamentally like not understanding how auto tune works and not understanding how to use it in a non horrifyingly distracting way. So I think some of those bottom barrel Ringo records are genuinely like the product of pure incompetence. Whereas I think Nickelback is mostly just, I don't think this is in any sense of good taste, I suppose. But at least it's competently done on a literal level, I suppose.
Well, there we go. Nickelback is better than Ringo Starr, officially confirmed. Justice for
What did
Zach
we say?
Starkey. Uh,
Justice for Zach.
God forbid he overplay in the Who.
I know.
Well, there we go. That was Nickelback. I hope all of you are satisfied by this result. I know this was the band everybody was asking for. Fuck like Dylan, fuck Aerosmith. Who needs Swans? Nickelback. All right, that's it.